Welcome back to Spark Talk. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and comment. Each year in the NFL, we have a handful of teams before the season that are hyped up. And a lot of these teams are expected to be contenders going into the season. However, most likely they turn out to be pretenders. Teams that look good on paper and even might post up a good record, but they don't have enough to be an actual Super Bowl contender. Just look at the Minnesota Vikings from last season and essentially the Dallas Cowboys for the past 25 seasons plus. With all that out of the way, let's get into my top 5 pretenders for the 2023 NFL season. The number 5 team on this list is the Seattle Seahawks. And I think there's 3 main issues that will hold them back this season. Number 1 is a tougher division. Matthew Stafford is hopefully going to be back as a full-time starter for the Los Angeles Rams, and hopefully he will be back at 100%. And a healthy Rams team is still going to be pretty dangerous and hard to go up against. I think the Rams were injury-ridden last season, and Seattle played a pretty favorable schedule last season with 6 playoff teams, 2 of those games being against the 49ers. They went 2-4 in those games. I think the biggest problem or question mark to their offense is Geno Smith. As much of a fan I became of Geno Smith last season, there's some flaws in his game. He struggles going through his progressions on a consistent basis and doesn't really see the whole field clearly. A lot of the offense is one side of the field reads. On top of that, he'll be 33 next year. Does he have another season like last year in him? Or is he going to falter with a harder schedule in an offseason for teams to catch up to their new offensive scheme? One last thing about Seattle, they don't have an elite guy on the defensive line. I think Darrell Taylor can pop off this year, and I like Nwosu a lot, but they aren't elite talent as of yet. And last year, they ranked tied for 6th for rushing yards per attempt given up. With a lot of teams in the NFC being run-heavy offenses, if you look at the 49ers, Eagles, Rams, and the Giants, I think that poses a big issue for the Seahawks. And I think Seattle is definitely going to be a fun team to watch this year and can possibly make the wild card again. But I think that's the best outcome for them this season. The number 4 team on this list is the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars finally completed their rebuild last year and had a legit shot at making the Super Bowl or the AFC Championship. Trevor Lawrence put on a performance against the Chiefs in that divisional round game and put his team in a position to win that game, but the team faltered around him. The reason I have them on this list for this year is that the element of surprise is gone. This team really shocked some teams on how they were able to escape with victories at the end of the year and in the playoffs. They still have a similar team with a few new additions like Anton Harrison, one of my favorite pass blockers in the 2023 draft. I don't think they did enough to move the needle for this season. I think they are the odds-on favorites to win the AFC South, and I think they could win a playoff game at home. I don't like their odds against much more veteran teams like the Chiefs, Bengals, or the Bills. The Jaguars are going to be a team to look out for in the future, but I don't think this year will be their year, but it will be another step in the right direction for this franchise. The number 3 team on this list might come as a shock for a lot of y'all, and that is the Philadelphia Eagles. And I am not completely sold on the Eagles this year. Some teams will definitely pick up on what they did last year, and I think it will take a bit for Philadelphia to adjust to those adjustments. However, I do see the Eagles as a playoff team, but not as a division winner. The NFC East is so weird. For the past 18 seasons, there has not been a repeat winner, and I don't see it happening again. You add in the Super Bowl hangover to that mix, and I think it will be a weird season for them. Their offense will be just fine, but I am worried about the defense a bit. You have some new pieces and some young guys stepping in this year, and their veteran leaders are getting older. Like I said, they have a playoff roster, but getting back to the Super Bowl is so hard that I think they will falter in the wild card round and not sniff close to the Super Bowl this year because of that Super Bowl hangover. The number 2 team on this list is the Buffalo Bills. And let's be honest with ourselves here. The Bills have been the biggest pretender for the past 3 years, and they are definitely one of them, if not the top pretender for this season. There's something about a team that just falters when the pressure is at its highest. The last 3 years, they definitely have done that. There are just better teams in the AFC than them. You have the Chiefs, the Jets, the Bengals with a healthy Joe Burrow. Also, let's add in Miami to that list with a healthy Tua. Josh Allen needs to perform better in those big games. The AFC Championship game against the Chiefs in 2020 and last year in the divisional round against the Cincinnati Bengals were games that he was not an elite quarterback in. And he wasn't that same QB that people know and love during the regular season. Also, the defense definitely needs to step up this year in the postseason if they want a shot at the Super Bowl. And let's hope there's a shift with Sean McDermott calling the defensive plays this year. The number 1 team on this list is the Detroit Lions. They are the most hyped up team this year, and I don't think they are close to a Super Bowl contender. And they may not even make the playoffs. People forget that they started 1-6 last year. There were 2 different teams that showed up in the previous season. The first half of the year, and the team that we all knew and came to love in the second half of the year. The question is, which version of that team will show up this year? Personally, I think they will be around the same record that they were last year and be a wild card team, or maybe even win the NFC North with the way it is set up this year. I'm a big fan of what the Lions are doing, but it is hard to keep that momentum you had at the end of last season across training camp, preseason, and the start of the regular season. I think they will be all right, but Jared Goff is a concern for me because he does have up and down years. However, with Dan Campbell at the helm, I think they will definitely get back to the playoffs for the first time since the 2016-2017 season.